Hello, everyone. This is Margaret Manning with 60 and Me. This is the place where women over 60 come to be inspired. One of the things that we focus on as we get older is looking great. It's a bit of a stereotype that women over 60 don't care what they look like, and we do. We care about fashion and about style and about looking wonderful and expressing our individuality. So, my guest tonight is Judith Boyd. Judith is a woman who has a passion for style and she appreciates individualism in everything that she does. She is a wonderful 70-year-old woman, and I hope you don't mind me mentioning your age, Judith.
No, I like my age, so it's fine.
You are actually, I was going to say you don't look 70, but you don't feel 70 either. When I've spoken with you, you have a huge energy, and I love it. So welcome to the show.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, Margaret.
So Judith has a blog. It's called the Style Crone, and I love this blog. I go there all the time and get inspiration. And it's an unusual name, Style Crone. I wonder if you could start, Judith, by just telling us, how you came up with that name and what it means to you.
I came up with the name after researching words that were used to describe older women, and I couldn't find any that were positive. And I've been attracted to the word crone for some time. I researched crone, and it used to, in some cultures, mean a woman that was valued, a woman in the third stage of being feminine, and that maybe because our culture is so youth-oriented, the crone is no longer adored as has been in the past and a valued part of the culture. And so I decided to embrace it. And when I started my blog, it was July 2010, and my husband was still alive at that time, and he really loved the word. And so did some of my friends. And it was interesting that so did some of my younger friends, like in their 20s, liked it. Other people were very hesitant and thought it was a negative term and that I shouldn't use it. But I decided to go with my own instinct, and I'm glad that I did.
Well, it's really true that that word does embody characteristics that the women in the community, the 60 community, talk about all the time, that kind of spirit of adventure, that sense that you have done everything in your life. You've lived through 6 decades and accumulated such wisdom. And, it's really wonderful, I think, for you to celebrate that. So it's a great blog. So tell me why style is so important to you personally? Because look at you, surrounded by beautiful scarves. I love your background, but why is style so important to you?
I think it goes back to when I was young and I was interested in dressing for myself to feel good about myself, but it really escalated in the 70s. And a friend had a vintage clothing store, and I found myself attracted to the styles of the 40s, even the 30s, the 20s, and the 50s, everything, because I think there is something to be said about some of the fashion and style from every era. And that's when I started wearing hats as well. And then I started going to estate sales and vintage stores and thrift shops and so on, interested in recycling. I spent most of my life working in the mental health arena, mostly in emergency mental health. And I found that my outfits were accepted by both the people that I worked with and by my clients. So I feel like it's a meditation that as I prepared to go to work, and usually my day consisted of talking with people who had been very traumatized and were in a crisis, that it helped me prepare for the day in a way that was relaxing and self-satisfying, and it was a way to express myself. So it's been that way for a long time.
That's a really interesting way to think about clothing and about the way that you adorn yourself. Is that is somehow a meditation and
Right.
an expression of your inner self. And tell me a little bit about your style personally. I know you talked about vintage and about recycling, and actually a lot of women in the community are thinking about, reusing and, making things work without having to spend a lot of money. So tell me a bit about your personal quest for style.
I I'm interested in recycling partially because it's a challenge and fun and to find pieces off of the beaten track.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's also good for the planet, and that's a value that's important to me. That things don't end up in landfills, and so it's important to me to recycle, and so that I do that with whatever I adorn myself with as well. Going to estate sales is really fun. It's a subculture, and sometimes I don't find anything, but sometimes I find treasures that I cannot believe that I find. And I've ended up as a collector, as you can see the scarves in back of me. Almost most of them are from estate sales or thrift shops or consignment stores, gifted. Very seldom do I buy anything retail. Sometimes, as background to then adorn myself, I like to have well-fitting basic pieces. But most of what I wear is something that I find off the beaten track.
You know, I've actually seen pictures of you, obviously, on the blog, and then some others that that I've looked at. And you're right. I mean, you sometimes will choose just a black dress,
Right.
a lovely pair of boots, but then you just do these amazing things with jackets and scarves. And I think for women in the community, that's a really inspirational thing to do, because you can always look. A scarf is something you can always, make an outfit special with. So I think and hats.
Well,
That's another
yes,
thing.
a hat every day.
So tell me about your hatathon, or whatever you call it. I know on your site you've got not a competition, but an activity going with women all around the world about hats. How does that work?
Um, well, I started an ongoing feature on my blog that happens the first day of every month and then extends for 7 days. And the name of that feature is Hat Attack.
Hat
And
attack, yeah.
so what I ask for is for women to send me, or it could be men as well, a photo of themselves wearing a hat. And I always include a photo of myself wearing a special
Beautiful.
hat.
Yeah.
And just this week was the third installment in that feature.
Right.
So
It's really, really fun. Actually, I keep meaning to send you, because I'm a beret person. I wear berets all the time. And that one you're wearing is gorgeous. Is that something that you've made, or is that one that you bought somewhere?
I have a line of headwear for people who have hair loss due to medical problems or for people who just love beautiful head wraps. And I'm in the beginning phase of that. It came out of a hat shop that I had with a business partner in the 80s. And we then developed, we were both psych nurses doing a hat shop in Denver, go figure.
Mm-hmm.
And we developed a line of headwear, combining our love of headwear with our healthcare backgrounds for people who were involved in chemotherapy or other medical reasons for hair loss. And we also found that people that just loved head wraps liked them as well. And so I'm bringing that idea back into my life, and I'm in the process of finding the perfect sewer to do these, because I'm not interested in making them myself, because I really need to be careful how do I spend my time right now. I am 70 years old. Life can turn on a dime. I know that very well. And so I'm trying to focus on what I love to do with this project. So I love to market them. I love to wear them. I like to help people learn how to wear them. I'm very comfortable meeting with women who are going through chemotherapy or men that want to wear head wraps. And it combines, as I said, my background in healthcare and my love of headwear. So this is one of the pieces and I wrapped it today. It can be wrapped in a million different ways, and I would show you that, but if I did that, the whole thing would collapse and I'd have to start from scratch. Probably not going to do that.
You should maybe put it on your blog, though. You could actually do, showing people how you do it, because I know that you're a follower of a group in New York called Advanced Style, and we can talk about them in a minute, because I know they've been recently on TV. But
Right.
But obviously a lot of the women wear these beautiful headpieces I mean, it seems there's a wonderful expression of your individuality. So I'd love to see how you do it. It would be quite amazing. So let's talk about advanced style.
Uh-huh.
I'm very interested in well, I don't know if it's a group of women, but it was a book written by a gentleman, I believe it was Mr.
Ari Cohen,
Cohen,
yes.
and he basically walked the streets of New York to find inspirational older women in their, well, 70s, 80s, and beyond. What is your association with them? And have you met any of those women? Have you been inspired by them?
Yes, before I started my blog, I was inspired by Ari Cohen's blog, Advanced Style, and it helped me to feel that there were other women out there that express themselves through their outfits and that they consider it a form of art. And it was very encouraging to me. And after I started my blog, I did go to New York. My daughter lived in New York for 12 years, and so I went frequently over that period of time. And I went to visit her, and I had been communicating with one of the regulars on Advanced Style, Deborah Rappaport, who's wonderful. And I met her on my visit, I believe it was in November of 2010. And I met Ari at that visit, during that visit as well. And he featured me on his blog then, and he's featured me a number of times since then.
That's great.
So he's very generous, very, it's as though he has created a revolution of sorts for women, older women, that we don't have to be invisible and that it's healthy for us to express ourselves and feel comfortable. And so then I consider it a life extender because it helps me to engage my creativity. And what could be more alive than engaging with my creativity? So I think that he's been a big, he's been at the forefront of that movement.
You know, I think you're giving us a lot of interesting tips here for the women in the community, which is around, not only is our body to be appreciated and adorned, but not to be considered invisible, that we look at it like a piece of art that we adorn and we decorate to to match our inner being, our inner spirit. And it's almost a spiritual experience. Would you agree with that?
I I totally agree with that. And I also believe that it's okay how anyone wants to express themselves, I believe, or not express themselves through their outfits. I think there is a continuum, and any place that any of us are on that continuum is okay. Not everybody is going to be into how I express myself. But I appreciate the full range. I appreciate if someone is more comfortable not wanting to be more visible. That's okay too. I think that it's important as women that we are comfortable with all forms of self-expression. And so that's where I stand on that issue.
Are you a dancer?
I love to dance. I at times go to dance class, but I am devoted to yoga.
Uh-huh.
And but my daughter was a dancer, and that's part of why she was in New York. So, but
I could just see you dancing somehow. But yoga, tell us about yoga. I mean, have you been doing that for a while? Is it something that's woven into your life now?
it's like the scaffolding of my life. It
Mm-hmm.
provides structure. It's been a lifeline, just as my blog has been. My daughter introduced me to yoga when I was in my 60s. So, no, I haven't been
Wow.
doing it all the time. And she said, Mom, you can do this. So I went with her, and I started at a beginner's level, and I stayed in that level for a year. And then when she was back home visiting from New York, she encouraged me to try heated yoga at the same studio.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that, and I have never looked back. I just love it. I have exercised in many different ways and many different forms over the years, but I've never found something that I just yearn for.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, I go 4 times a week, and it's just part of my the structure of my life.
You know,
And
I wanted to speak with you for so many reasons. I mean, one was I wanted you to share with the community your concept of style and about how women in our age group can be, can be beautiful at all ages. And like you said, either, adorning or not, and just accepting who they are. But you've actually, in the course of our conversation, reinforced all the rules that I've talked to a couple of brain neuroscientists about longevity and healthy living, and all the things you said about creativity, about exercise, about self-expression, social connection, although you're doing it so beautifully, and it's no doubt that that's affecting your overall happiness in your life.
yes, I had a very tragic thing happen, and without it happening, I would not have started my blog. My husband was diagnosed with cancer in 2005.
Yeah, very sad.
And by the time I started my blog, which I wouldn't have done without him because he was my photographer to begin with, which I
Yeah.
never done before either. So it was a project that we did together. But the yoga that I did during that time and having a way to cope with
Mm-hmm.
a very a crisis-oriented life was so helpful for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. No, I think that's interesting. A lot of people have gone through that. We get to our age, and loss can sometimes be a great stimulator. But I do know that he was a lot in your life, and so I appreciate you sharing that with us. But he'll be proud of you because you've gone on to do such amazing things. I was going to ask you, what is the most wonderful compliment that someone has ever given you?
Oh, the most wonderful compliment. Um, I think maybe that someone has said, or some women have said that they've been inspired to start expressing themselves more creatively, and to be more accepting of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be the biggest compliment that I can think of at this time. I think that um, some people have been hesitant to wear hats, and hats aren't for everybody. And I certainly understand that. Some people just love their hair and don't, and that's great too, and not want to put a hat on their head. But then again, some people have experimented with wearing hats, and it's found it that interesting that you can get a better seat at a restaurant if you have a hat on, or you find people saying "great hat," or interesting experiences happen, I think, when you wear hats.
I agree with you because I wear berets a lot and I have them in every color under the sun. And I always find that when I wear my beret or wear my hat, I do get more smiles. And maybe it's because I'm smiling. I don't know.
Well, of course, headwear would make you
It
smile.
does. It really does. Judy, this has been such a great conversation. You have inspired me, and I know you've inspired the people listening. But I have a question. What if you've got a few tips for us? What would be, tips from Judith for, just how to establish your own style? Just advice from you on, since you're such an expert in this.
But I don't know
You
if
do it so well.
I really don't consider myself an expert. I feel like um, I'm I'm happy that I can express myself how I choose to, and I do that for myself. So telling somebody else how to do that is a little bit difficult for me. But what I have found is that having some real basics that fit me well and that are neutral, that I can then embellish to my heart's content. And in terms of wanting to start something new or try something new, I think just trying something very simple that's different from what one would usually do. For example, because I can talk about hats more easily than any other piece of clothing, that if someone was wanting to try a hat, that just trying a very basic hat, like you wear berets all the time, and that, or a fedora, or something that is very not something that is. I'm so comfortable going way out there with my. I have no fear of hat wearing, but I think going to a thrift store or a consignment store so that you don't have to invest very much money in it, and then just wear it out for a few minutes one time and just see how you feel. It's not permanent. It's not something that you can take it off. And so that lends itself to experimentation. And I think experimentation is exciting, and it makes the blood run through the body. And I think that's good for your health, trying new things all the time, even if you feel a little bit afraid. That's part of it. And feeling, I did just do recently a post on my blog about fear, and some quotes by some people that feel the fear and do it anyway. That I think is another life extender.
You know, this is great aspect, and I forgot to mention that you actually did something recently which was a bit outside of your comfort zone, and maybe you faced your fears. You were asked to do a photo shoot in Denver, and it sounded wonderful the last time that we spoke. So can you tell us how that turned out?
It was really fun, and it hasn't. I had forgotten that I filled out an entry form, and all of a sudden I got to be a part of this PR campaign for a development that was a housing development that was going up in the foothills outside of Denver. And then I got an email that I had been one of the 5 people that won. And so I got a monetary award for that. And I was totally surprised, totally taken aback. And there was a photo shoot that was done at the Denver Art Museum. It was about a month ago now, and I'm going to be part of the PR campaign that's coming out sometime this fall and in magazine ads and so on. And it was a total surprise to me, and it's just an example of one of the things that has happened to me because of my blog. And I'm very humbled by it and so grateful, because I never had any expectation that things like this would happen to me. So it's wonderful.
Well, I cannot wait to see the pictures. I'm sure that they're absolutely gorgeous, and you are just fantastic. And thank you so much for being here. I mean, you've really covered some areas that I know will be of interest, and just that sense of going for it and not being afraid to try new things and to celebrate your beauty, whatever, in whatever way that you want. It's been just great. So thank you so much. So your website is the Style Crone. No, it's stylecrone.com.
Stylecrone.com.
And people can reach you there.
Thank you so much, Margaret.
Thank you, Judith. It's been wonderful. Thank you.